A 100-ton stone block stands silent in a field, placed there thousands of years before modern machinery existed. This is the Megalithic Mystery, a puzzle that has captivated experts for generations. How did ancient civilizations move stones heavier than blue whales across vast distances and erect them into towering monuments? By the end of this exploration, you will understand the ingenious methods that turned impossible tasks into lasting stone legends. We will investigate how logs and levers could conquer immense weight, and why some theories suggest sound itself may have helped float these giants. What does our struggle to solve these ancient puzzles reveal about our own place in history? These massive stone monuments are a global phenomenon, appearing from the windswept plains of England to the remote islands of the Pacific. The very word megalith comes from ancient Greek, simply meaning large stone, and that scale is what truly defines them. We are not talking about simple piles of rock. These are precisely arranged structures, often serving as tombs, temples, or sophisticated calendars tracking the sun and stars. Consider the great stone circles of Europe, their pillars capped with impossibly heavy lintels, or the towering moai statues of Easter Island, gazing inland from their coastal platforms. Each one began as a single, colossal block, quarried from the earth and then moved, sometimes for miles, across challenging landscapes. The weights involved are almost beyond comprehension, ranging from 20 tons to well over 100. That is heavier than a fully loaded semi-truck. This sheer physical scale presents the core of our mystery. How could cultures without wheels, without iron, and without written plans achieve such feats of engineering? To appreciate the puzzle, we must first look at the most iconic examples that continue to challenge everything we think we know about the ancient world. Stonehenge stands as a silent sentinel on the Salisbury Plain, its massive trilithons forming a complex calendar of stone. Yet this British icon is just one piece of a global puzzle. Far to the east, in modern-day Turkey, the stone circles of Göbekli Tepe rise from the earth, their intricately carved pillars predating Stonehenge by thousands of years. This site rewrites human history, proving that complex stoneworking emerged at the very dawn of civilization. Meanwhile, in the high Andes of Peru, the Sacsayhuaman fortress displays a masonry so precise it seems otherworldly. Enormous stones are cut into complex, interlocking shapes, fitting together so perfectly that you cannot slide a razor blade between the joints. Then there is the podium at Baalbek in Lebanon, known as the Trilithon. Here, 3 limestone blocks each weigh an estimated 800 tons. That is heavier than 2 fully loaded jumbo jets. And we cannot forget the haunting moai of Easter Island, their immense stone bodies carved from a volcanic quarry, and then somehow walked miles across the island to stand guard on coastal platforms. From the rolling hills of England to the remote Pacific, these builders faced the same fundamental challenge. They had to conquer weight and distance with nothing but human ingenuity, wooden tools, and stone. The sheer diversity of these sites tells us something profound. This was not a single secret passed from one master builder to another. It was a universal human drive to create the impossible, solved again and again by cultures who never knew each other existed. Each monument is a unique experiment in megalithic engineering, a distinct answer to the same colossal problem. So what exactly was that core, unifying challenge that made moving a 100-ton stone an almost unimaginable feat? Visualize 50 family cars all stacked together. That is the sheer mass of a single 100-ton stone block. The core challenge was not just weight, but controlling that weight. Every movement was a battle against friction and gravity. On rough, uneven ground, the resistance is immense. Simply dragging such a stone would require hundreds of people pulling on ropes with perfect coordination. A single misstep, a moment where the force is applied incorrectly, could send the stone lurching out of control, crushing workers and destroying months of effort in an instant. But the difficulties only began with friction. The stones themselves were rarely perfect cubes. Ancient builders often worked with irregular blocks, their centers of gravity shifting unpredictably with every tilt and turn. A seemingly stable stone could suddenly become unbalanced, threatening to roll or crack under its own immense pressure. Then there was the terrain. Moving from a quarry to a building site meant navigating slopes, crossing soft earth, and even forging streams. Each type of ground presented a new puzzle. Soft soil could swallow a sledge, while a steep incline transformed the stone into a deadly, uncontrolled pendulum. Beyond the physics lay the profound human challenge. A project like this required a small army of laborers, not for days but for months or even years. The logistics were staggering. How do you feed, house, and organize hundreds, perhaps thousands of workers? Where does the food come from? How is water supplied? This level of coordination suggests more than just brute force. It points to a highly organized society with sophisticated planning and communication. The true monument was not just the final stone structure, but the invisible framework of human collaboration that made it possible. This was a puzzle of physics, engineering, and social organization all rolled into one. So how did they begin to solve it? The first step was to make the impossible weight manageable, and that required a touch of genius. The true genius of these builders lies not in complex machinery, but in their profound understanding of simple principles. They mastered the art of leverage, using a long wooden pole and a pivot point to accomplish what muscle alone could not. Think of trying to lift one end of a car by hand, an impossible task. But slide a strong crowbar underneath with a solid block of wood as a fulcrum, and suddenly you can lift it. Ancient engineers scaled this idea up dramatically. A team of workers pushing down on long timber levers could pivot a multi-ton stone, allowing them to shift its position or lift it just enough to slip a support underneath. This incremental lifting, repeated over and over, could slowly raise a colossal block onto a waiting platform. Then there was the inclined plane, one of the most powerful tools in their arsenal. Dragging a stone straight up a vertical face is impossible, but by building an earthen ramp, the builders transformed that impossible vertical lift into a long, gradual slope. The same amount of work is done, but the force required at any single moment is drastically reduced. Instead of lifting the stone's entire weight at once, teams could pull it up the gentle incline, distributing the immense effort over a much longer distance. This principle is why you walk up a winding mountain road instead of climbing the cliff face directly. Evidence for these ramps has been found at the bases of great pyramids and other monuments, their very existence etched into the landscape. For horizontal movement, the solution was often as simple as a bundle of logs. Placing rounded rollers underneath a stone sledge effectively created a temporary, moving road. As the sledge was pulled forward, rollers from the back were constantly carried to the front, creating a continuous path. This method drastically reduced the grinding friction of dragging a block directly on the ground. You can see a small-scale version of this by trying to slide a heavy book across a table, then placing a few pens underneath it. The book moves with astonishing ease. On a quarry floor, you can still find ancient stones perched on such log cribbing, abandoned thousands of years ago but testifying to the method's widespread use. Even splitting the stone from the earth itself was a matter of applied physics. They did not have dynamite or diamond-tipped saws. Instead, they used wood and water. Workers would drill a line of holes along a natural fissure in the bedrock and drive dry wooden wedges into them. Then they poured water over the wedges. The wood would swell with tremendous force, enough to crack the granite or limestone cleanly along the desired line. This patient, intelligent process allowed them to harvest perfectly shaped blocks directly from the quarry face. What appears to us as a magical feat was really the clever application of basic physics. These simple machines, the lever, the ramp, and the roller, formed the essential toolkit that built the ancient world. They turned overwhelming force into manageable, incremental steps, but knowing the tools is only half the story. How did they orchestrate hundreds of workers to use them in perfect, coordinated harmony? The sheer scale of these projects demanded a human engine of immense power and precision. Historical records and archaeological evidence point to workforces numbering in the hundreds or even thousands, all organized with the efficiency of a modern corporation. These were not unruly mobs. Workers were divided into specialized teams, each with a critical role. One group of experts handled the delicate work of quarrying, using fire and water to fracture the bedrock. Another team focused on preparing the route, leveling ground, and building temporary roads. The largest contingent was reserved for the haul itself, the grueling task of moving the stone. This labor was often seasonal, drawn from farming communities during the quiet periods between planting and harvest. This cyclical rhythm meant that monument building did not cripple a society's food supply, but instead provided a productive outlet for collective effort during downtime. Coordination was the heartbeat of the entire operation. A single misaligned pull could spell disaster. Leaders, perhaps using drum beats, horn blasts, or simple chants, provided a rhythmic pulse for the teams. This synchronization was not just for morale, it was a matter of physics. When hundreds of people pull on a rope in perfect unison, their combined force multiplies. A coordinated heave could break the stone free from the mud, while a disjointed tug would see the rope go slack, wasting precious energy. In many cultures, this backbreaking work was framed as a sacred duty or a communal project that strengthened social bonds. The act of building together was as important as the finished monument, weaving a sense of shared purpose and identity into the very stones they raised. Modern experiments have proven the stunning effectiveness of this approach. With a well-trained team using only ropes, logs, and rhythmic commands, a multi-ton stone can be moved several hundred feet in a single day. This human element is the final, crucial piece of the puzzle. The greatest innovation was not a tool, but the organization of people themselves. It was this profound collaboration that turned individual strength into a collective force capable of reshaping the world. But human ingenuity did not work alone. It learned to partner with the very forces of nature. The ancient builders understood that the greatest ally in their work was the world itself. They learned to read the landscape like a map and harness the elements as tools. For moving stones across great distances, water offered a miraculous solution. A 100-ton block is immovable on land, but placed on a sturdy raft, it is buoyed by the water, its effective weight drastically reduced. This principle of buoyancy allowed civilizations with access to rivers or coastlines to transport their heaviest monuments with relative ease. They could float stones for miles on barges, guided by currents and sails, turning an overland nightmare into a manageable maritime journey. In colder climates, another element became a temporary roadway. By deliberately wetting the ground in front of a stone-laden sledge during winter, workers could create a path of ice. This slick surface reduced friction to almost nothing, allowing a large team to pull massive loads across what was essentially a natural slip and slide. The builders also became masters of gravity. Instead of fighting its constant pull, they used it for propulsion. By carefully planning a route that descended a slope, the stone's own immense weight would help carry it forward. The primary challenge then shifted from pulling to braking, using sophisticated systems of ropes and drag anchors to control the descent and prevent a catastrophic runaway. Some of the most intriguing theories involve the tides. Coastal cultures may have timed their work with the lunar cycle, maneuvering stones into position at low tide and allowing the rising ocean to float them onto their final foundations. This deep, intuitive partnership with nature transformed impossible tasks into achievable projects. It was not about conquering the environment, but collaborating with it. The success of these physical methods is undeniable, yet they leave room for a tantalizing question. Could the builders have also mastered something more ethereal, a technology that seems to belong to the realm of legend? Amidst the undeniable success of levers and ramps, a more elusive possibility lingers in the whispers of legend. Some researchers propose that the ancient builders possessed a secret knowledge of sound itself. Stories from various cultures speak of priests or shamans using specific chants, drum beats, or the resonant tones of singing bowls. The theory suggests these carefully tuned frequencies could create vibrations that counteracted gravity or dramatically reduced friction, making a stone glide across the ground as if it were floating on a cushion of air. Think of how a powerful bass note can make the floor tremble, then amplify that effect 1,000-fold. While this seems like the stuff of fantasy, modern experiments have shown that acoustic levitation is possible on a tiny scale, suspending small droplets of liquid in mid-air using nothing but sound waves. Could this principle have been scaled up to move monolithic stones? The evidence is thin, resting more on oral tradition than on physical proof, but it points to a fascinating idea that sound was not just for communication, but a tangible tool. Another controversial theory involves a lost chemical knowledge. Legends from South America describe a plant-based liquid that, when applied to stone, would make its surface temporarily soft and malleable like clay. This would explain the impossibly tight joints and flowing, molded appearance of some ancient walls. Proponents of this idea point to the fact that certain rocks, like granite, contain crystalline structures that can be weakened with acidic compounds found in nature. Yet no one has ever rediscovered this fabled rock softening formula, and no residue has been conclusively identified on the ancient stones themselves. These accounts, whether of sonic levitation or plant-based solvents, often come from indigenous oral histories where the practical and the spiritual are deeply intertwined. A ritual chant was not merely a song, it was a focused application of energy. A sacred ceremony was part of the construction process itself, aligning human intention with the physical task at hand. To dismiss these stories as mere myth is to ignore a crucial dimension of how these cultures viewed their world, where mind, matter, and spirit worked in concert. These speculative ideas remain on the fringes of archaeology for good reason, but they endure because they capture our sense of wonder. They remind us that our conventional toolbox of logs and ropes might not tell the whole story. The true answer may not be a single lost technology, but a lost way of thinking, a holistic understanding of physics that we are only just beginning to rediscover. So how can we test these age-old mysteries with the tools of our own time? The quiet fields of modern experiments have become our most powerful window into the ancient world. At the University of Exeter, archaeologists and engineers have turned theory into tangible action, using replica stones and tools that would have been familiar to a Neolithic builder. They construct wooden sledges, gather teams of volunteers, and lay out pathways of rounded logs, recreating the monumental tasks of the past. the results are often surprising, revealing that the smallest details made the biggest difference. For instance, preparing a track with a layer of wet clay or animal fat can slash the required pulling force by half. What seems like a simple lubricant becomes a revolutionary technology, turning an impossible drag into a manageable pull. In one remarkable demonstration, a large team moved a concrete block weighing many tons across a significant distance using nothing but woven ropes and coordinated heaves. The success of these trials proves a profound point. The methods were not only possible, they were efficient. Beyond physical reenactments, advanced computer modeling offers another layer of insight. Researchers can input variables like stone weight, ground friction, and team size to simulate thousands of movement scenarios in a virtual space. This digital testing ground allows them to optimize ancient techniques without ever lifting a real stone, identifying the most efficient angles for ramps or the ideal number of people on a rope. These simulations often confirm what the physical experiments show, that persistence and clever design were far more critical than any mythical lost technology. The collective work of these modern teams builds a compelling bridge across the centuries, validating that human ingenuity, when applied with patient organization, was the true engine behind these wonders. We can now understand the how, but this practical knowledge leads us to a deeper question. Why did these cultures commit such immense resources to raising stones that would outlast them for millennia? A 100-ton stone is more than a building block, it is a statement. These structures anchored entire worldviews, serving as sacred tombs, temples, and the beating hearts of communities. For the people who built them, the immense effort was justified by an even greater purpose, connecting the human world to the divine and the cosmic. A stone circle was not just a calendar, it was a conduit, its alignments capturing the solstice sun or the rising of a key star. This tangible link to the heavens reinforced a cultural identity tied to the rhythms of nature, a calendar written in stone for a society without written words. The very act of construction wove the community together. Dragging a monolith for miles was a monumental act of shared purpose, a project that transformed a collection of families into a unified people with a common legacy. The symbols they carved, the spirals that might represent the journey of life or the animals that symbolized clan totems, were not mere decoration. They were a language of belief etched into the rock, ensuring that their values and myths would endure as long as the stone itself. This cultural context is the missing piece that explains the why. The technology of levers and ramps was only the how. The real engine was the human spirit, a collective will to create something that gave meaning to their existence and connected them to eternity. Across the globe, this universal drive found wildly different expressions, as unique as the landscapes and cultures that gave them form. Each civilization wrote its own engineering manual in stone. In Egypt, the landscape itself became a machine. Archaeologists have found the remains of enormous earthen ramps leading directly to the rising faces of the pyramids, the primary highways for millions of stone blocks. But they also discovered evidence of a more clever system, water management. They may have dug channels from the Nile right to the construction site, floating the heaviest stones on barges for the final leg of the journey, then using water to lubricate the ramps, turning a sandy drag into a slick, efficient slide. This was macro engineering on a staggering scale. Across the ocean, the Inca of the high Andes faced a completely different challenge: earthquakes. Their solution was not mortar but masterful geometry. They carved granite blocks into complex, interlocking puzzles. Each stone has multiple faces that lock perfectly with its neighbors. When the ground shakes, these walls do not collapse, they dance, the stones shifting and then settling back into place. This required no massive ramps, just an unbelievable precision in carving that still defies explanation. In Europe, the builders of Malta and Ireland worked with smaller, more manageable stones, but their genius was in balance. They constructed corbelled arches where each successive layer of stone slightly overhangs the one below until the two sides meet at the top, held in place only by gravity. Their iconic post and lintel systems, like at Stonehenge, relied on perfectly level foundations and meticulously shaped joints to keep immense weights suspended for millennia. And on a remote Pacific island, the Polynesian settlers of Rapa Nui developed a method as unique as their statues. They used a system of ropes and levers to literally walk the moai upright. By rocking the statue back and forth with coordinated pulls, they could inch it forward in a standing position, a method that turned the statue's own weight into a tool for momentum. This global tapestry reveals a profound truth. There was no single secret. The Egyptians leveraged their river and vast manpower. The Inca perfected the art of the fit to withstand tectonic forces. The Europeans mastered balance and gravity. The Polynesians innovated with leverage and motion. Each culture looked at the materials and challenges before them and engineered a brilliant, localized solution. Their methods were as diverse as their monuments, proving that human ingenuity is not a monolith, but a spectrum of brilliant adaptations. Yet all of these incredible structures share a common, explosive starting point, the moment a colossal stone is first separated from the living earth. The first cut was the deepest. Before any stone could travel, it had to be freed from the living earth. Ancient quarries are like open-air museums of this extraction process, their walls scarred with the evidence of patient, brilliant labor. The most common technique was one of controlled expansion. Workers would first dig deep trenches around the block they wanted, isolating it from the surrounding bedrock. Then they drilled a series of holes along a natural fissure and hammered in dry, wooden wedges. The real magic happened when they poured water over the wood. As the wedges swelled, they generated immense, relentless pressure, enough to crack the granite or limestone cleanly along a predetermined line. This was not a violent explosion, but a slow, deliberate birth, using the hidden strength within the tree itself to coax the stone from its bed. For the toughest rocks, builders employed thermal shock, a dramatic dance of fire and ice. They would build a large fire directly against the rock face, heating the stone until it glowed. Then, just as the temperature peaked, they doused it with cold water. The sudden, drastic contraction caused the rock to fracture, creating a web of cracks and loosening large, manageable fragments. This method, known as fire setting, filled the quarries with acrid smoke and intense heat, a testament to the extreme conditions these workers endured. Once the larger pieces were broken free, the final shaping began. Using nothing but stone hammers and copper chisels, artisans would peck and grind away the excess, slowly revealing the perfect form hidden within the rough block. This was a painstaking, time-consuming process where a single day's work might only remove a few inches of material. The choice of stone itself was a critical decision. Softer limestones were relatively easy to shape with these basic tools, while the crystalline structure of granite or basalt demanded the more aggressive thermal and expansion methods. Scattered across these ancient sites are the ghosts of unfinished projects, partially cut blocks still locked in the quarry floor. One famous example in Egypt shows a giant obelisk that cracked during extraction, abandoned forever just as it was about to be freed. These discarded stones are not failures, they are frozen moments in time, offering us a priceless snapshot of the process in action. They reveal the trial and error, the immense risk, and the profound understanding of material science these early engineers possessed. This initial phase required more than brute force. It demanded a deep, intuitive knowledge of geology and physics. Every block that was successfully quarried represented a victory over the Earth itself, the first and most crucial step in a journey that would transform a piece of the planet into a monument for the ages. Now, with the stone finally separated and shaped, the true test of logistics began. Moving this mountain, the most grueling phase of the journey, began the moment the stone left the quarry. For shorter overland hauls, the primary tool was the sledge, a robust wooden platform that cradled the massive block. But dragging this immense weight across raw earth was a battle against friction, a force that could halt progress completely. The solution was as simple as it was brilliant: lubrication. By wetting the path ahead with water or smearing it with a slick mixture of mud and animal fat, workers transformed a sticky drag into a smooth slide. This was not a minor improvement. It could cut the required pulling force in half, turning an impossible task into a manageable one. Think of trying to push a heavy box across a carpet, then spraying the floor with furniture polish. The difference is transformative. On a monumental scale, that same principle allowed teams to coax 100-ton stones forward, inch by laborious inch. Alongside the sledge, another invention proved essential: the roller. Teams placed strong, cylindrical logs perpendicularly beneath the sledge, creating a temporary, moving roadway. As the stone was pulled forward, the logs would turn, and workers behind would constantly retrieve the ones that emerged at the back and run them to the front. This created a continuous cycle, a conveyor belt of wood that carried the stone along. It was a method that required perfect rhythm and coordination, a dance of logistics where a single jammed log could bring the entire operation to a dangerous standstill. To support this effort, builders often prepared the ground itself, laying down timber trackways or even stone pavements to create a firm, level surface that prevented the sledge from bogging down in soft soil. Modern experiments have vividly brought this process to life. With a well-organized team of several dozen people, a replica sledge carrying a concrete block weighing many tons can be moved hundreds of feet in a single day. The rhythmic chanting, the coordinated heaves on the ropes, the constant, fluid motion of the logs, it all reveals a system of elegant practicality. This land-based transport was the workhorse of megalithic construction, a testament to how sheer human effort, when guided by clever physics, could move mountains. Yet for all its effectiveness, this method had its limits over very long distances. The true masters of megalithic transport looked beyond the land to the ancient world's natural highways. The world's waterways offered a natural highway, turning an impossible overland drag into a graceful aquatic journey. For civilizations with access to rivers or the sea, the principle of buoyancy was a form of magic. By lashing a colossal stone to a raft made of logs or tightly bound reeds, its crushing weight was supported by the water itself. This simple craft could then be towed by teams of canoes or guided by skilled sailors using the current, moving a 100-ton block as easily as a piece of driftwood. The evidence for this is etched into the landscape and the archaeological record. In ancient Egypt, they did not just use the Nile, they extended it. Grand canals were dug directly from the river to the foot of the pyramids, creating liquid ramps that delivered the heaviest stones to the very heart of the construction site. This was logistics on a staggering scale. Further north, the builders of monuments like Stonehenge, which lies relatively close to rivers, may have used a clever partnership with the moon. They could have maneuvered stones onto platforms during high tide, then waited for the water to recede, leaving the monoliths perfectly settled in their intended positions. The remains of ancient harbors and even shipwrecks loaded with building stone confirm that water transport was not just a theory, it was a routine and highly effective practice. This method drastically reduced the physical strain on laborers, preserving their energy for the final, most delicate operation. After a journey by land and water, the stone had reached its destination, but the most precarious task still lay ahead, raising this sleeping giant to stand upright against the sky. Raising a stone to stand upright was the final, delicate act in this monumental drama. The sheer logistics of lifting a multi-ton block into a vertical position required a profound understanding of balance and momentum. One of the most common methods involved a simple pit. Builders would dig a deep trench at the stone's final resting place, then carefully maneuver the horizontal block until one end was positioned directly over the hole. Using long wooden levers and a system of ropes for control, a team would begin to tilt the stone, pivoting it downward into the excavation. As the angle increased, workers would frantically pack stones and earth into the space beneath the rising end, locking each new gain in place. This was an agonizingly slow process of lift, pack, and lift again, inching the monolith upward until it stood proudly vertical, its base securely anchored in the earth. For even greater heights, a different strategy came into play: the earth ramp. This was macro engineering at its most ambitious. Workers constructed massive earthen embankments that rose at a gentle slope to the top of the standing stones or the growing walls of a pyramid. A colossal stone, already on its sledge, would be dragged up this artificial mountain, a task that still required immense effort but was far more manageable than any attempt at a direct lift. Once the stone was positioned precisely at the summit, the ramp was gradually dismantled, leaving the structure standing alone, as if it had grown from the ground itself. For lintels, the massive horizontal stones that cap vertical pillars, the challenge was different again. Some cultures may have used sturdy timber frames or tripods, creating a stable pivot from which the stone could be swung into place using ropes in a crude, pulley-like motion, even before the formal invention of the pulley wheel. Guiding these giants into position was not a matter of guesswork. The perfect alignment of Stonehenge's lintels, for instance, hints at the use of simple but effective tools. A plumb bob, a weighted string that always points directly downward, would have been essential for checking verticality. Sighting tools, perhaps two posts aligned with a distant horizon point, would ensure the entire structure was oriented with celestial precision. This final phase was where all the prior effort converged. A single miscalculation, a lever that slipped or a rope that frayed, could send months of labor crashing down in an instant. Successfully raising a megalith was a testament to meticulous planning and breathtaking courage. With these stones finally standing in silent rows and circles, their builders could turn their attention to the heavens, aligning their creations with the sun, moon, and stars. A single beam of sunlight can hold profound meaning. At Newgrange in Ireland, a massive stone passage tomb older than the pyramids, a narrow opening above the entrance performs a magical trick. For just a few minutes at dawn on the winter solstice, a slender shaft of sunlight pierces the inner chamber, illuminating a space that lies in darkness for the rest of the year. This was not an accident. It was a meticulously engineered connection between the earth and the sky, a built-in calendar that announced the return of the sun and the promise of spring. This celestial awareness was a global phenomenon. From the sun dagger at Choco Canyon that marks the equinoxes to the stone rows of Karnak in France that may track the moon, these builders looked upward for guidance. The precise positioning of monoliths often correlates with complex lunar cycles or the rising of specific stars like Sirius or the Pleiades. This required generations of patient observation, a long-term project to map the heavens themselves onto the landscape below. This sophisticated knowledge of celestial mechanics served a profound dual purpose. On a practical level, these stone calendars dictated the rhythm of life. They signaled the optimal times for planting and harvest, for migration, and for seasonal gatherings. but their function ran much deeper than mere agriculture. These alignments had immense ritual significance, linking human activities directly to the cosmic order. A solstice sunrise bursting into a sacred tomb would have been a powerful spectacle, a moment where the divine seemed to touch the mortal world. This connection likely reinforced the authority of ruling priests or chieftains, who could claim the power to predict and even communicate with the forces that governed the universe. The monument became a stage for demonstrating this sacred knowledge, solidifying social hierarchies and unifying the community under a shared cosmic worldview. The field of archaeoastronomy, the study of how ancient peoples understood the sky, reveals just how widespread this celestial focus was. Cultures that never met, from the Andes to the British Isles, independently arrived at the same conclusion, that the movements of the sun, moon, and stars were a fundamental language of existence. This shared interest added a staggering layer of complexity to construction. It meant that before a single stone was quarried, accurate surveys of the horizon had to be conducted over many years. The final placement was not just about finding flat ground. It was about aligning a multi-ton block with a point on the distant horizon where a star would rise once every 18.6 years, or where the sun would set on the shortest day of the year. This was engineering with a celestial deadline, a project that demanded planning across decades, even centuries. The stars guided more than just ocean voyages. They guided the placement of monuments meant to last for eternity. As we reflect on these celestial stone circles, we are left to wonder about the society that could commit to such a long-term vision. What did it mean for a community to invest not just in a single generation, but in a project whose full purpose might only be revealed to their grandchildren's grandchildren? This was not just architecture, it was a covenant with the cosmos, a promise written in stone that they were part of a grand, eternal cycle. The sheer ambition of this endeavor forces us to see these ancient people not as primitive stoneworkers, but as visionary astronomers and disciplined long-term planners. Their legacy challenges our own relationship with time and the monuments we choose to build for the future. The very act of moving mountains forged new kinds of societies. To feed, house, and direct a workforce of thousands required a level of organization that simple village life never demanded. This logistical pressure likely gave rise to the world's first administrators, the individuals who planned the routes, allocated the food, and synchronized the labor. These were not yet kings or emperors, but they were the precursors, the managers whose authority came from their ability to orchestrate the impossible. With this centralized control came specialization. For the first time, a person could be a full-time quarry master, an expert in lever mechanics, or a master rope maker. This division of labor was a revolutionary leap, driving innovation not just in stoneworking, but in society itself. Craft knowledge deepened, techniques improved, and this specialized expertise became a form of power. Yet this new social structure presented a profound paradox. On one hand, the shared, back-breaking labor of a communal project could weave a powerful social fabric. Pulling together on a rope that moves 100-ton stone creates an unbreakable bond, a collective identity rooted in a shared achievement. The finished monument became a source of immense local pride, a symbol of what the community could accomplish together. But on the other hand, this system could easily create deep inequalities. Was this labor always voluntary, a sacred duty performed for the good of all? Or was it coerced, a form of taxation or even slavery imposed by a rising elite? The truth likely varied from place to place. In some societies, participation may have been a rite of passage. In others, the monuments themselves, with their precise celestial alignments, may have helped legitimize the rule of a priestly class who claimed a special connection to the gods. The stones could thus be tools of unity and tools of control, sometimes simultaneously. Once completed, these sites did not fade into the landscape. They became magnetic centers of civilization. A place like Stonehenge or the Great Pyramid drew people from vast distances, not just as pilgrims but as traders. This influx of visitors and goods turned these sacred spaces into bustling hubs of commerce and information exchange, influencing regional politics and culture for centuries. The legacy of these projects is therefore twofold. They are testaments to human collaboration and ingenuity, but they also mark the point where our societies began to complexify, centralize, and stratify. This forces us to reconsider a romantic notion of the ancient past. It was not a time of simple equality, but an era of dramatic social experiment, where the drive to build the impossible forever changed the relationship between people and their leaders. With such a profound understanding of the societal forces at play, we are better equipped to dismantle the modern myths that have grown around these ancient stones. The most persistent myth about these ancient wonders is also the most dismissive, the idea that humans alone could not have built them. This belief often points to the sheer scale of the stones or the precision of the joints as proof of alien intervention or a forgotten, super-advanced civilization. Yet this line of thinking ignores the mountains of physical evidence we do have. At every quarry and building site, archaeologists have uncovered the actual tools used in the work: stone hammers, wooden wedges, copper chisels, and the remains of the earthen ramps that made the impossible slopes manageable. There are no traces of alien alloys or futuristic machinery, only the practical, brilliant implements of human hands. This evidence forms a complete and coherent story, one of trial and error, of patient innovation over generations. To claim otherwise is to strip these cultures of their greatest legacy, their ingenuity. Another seductive but flawed idea is that there was one universal secret, a single lost technique that explains every monument across the globe. The truth is far more interesting. The methods were as diverse as the cultures themselves, a direct response to local materials and landscapes. The Egyptians, with their access to the Nile and vast plains, built colossal ramps. The Inca, in their earthquake-prone mountains, perfected a jigsaw puzzle masonry that needed no mortar. The Polynesians, on their remote island, developed a method to walk their statues upright. There was no secret handbook passed between them, only a shared human capacity to solve colossal problems with the resources at hand. This diversity of solutions is a testament to the adaptability of the human mind, not proof of a singular, mysterious source. Some legends speak of supernatural aid, of chants that made stones weightless or plants that softened rock. While these stories are captivating, they belong to the realm of spiritual tradition rather than historical fact. Modern scientific experiments provide a far more grounded, and in many ways more impressive, explanation. When teams of archaeologists and engineers recreate these feats using only period-appropriate tools, they succeed. They have moved multi-ton blocks for miles using sledges, lubricants, and log rollers. They have raised stones into standing positions using levers and earthen pits. They have demonstrated that the real magic was not in esoteric knowledge, but in coordinated effort, clever physics, and relentless persistence. These experiments prove that the monuments were not miracles, they were projects. By clearing away these fantastical theories, we can see the true wonder more clearly. It is the wonder of organized human labor, of a community coming together to achieve something that would outlast them for thousands of years. This focus on tangible evidence and logical deduction does not diminish the mystery, it deepens it. The real question shifts from how they did it to what it meant for them to do it. This practical understanding of ancient ingenuity now invites a fascinating comparison. How do the methods of the past stand up against the powerful tools of our modern world? A modern crane can hoist a 100-ton stone in minutes, a task that once consumed months of ancient labor, yet this raw speed tells only half the story. Our contemporary power comes from fossil fuels and steel, while the ancient methods tapped into a more renewable resource, human collaboration guided by ingenious physics. They built with a deep awareness of their environment, using ramps of earth that would later erode back into the landscape and log rollers harvested from sustainable forests. Their approach was inherently low impact, leaving a surprisingly light footprint on the earth for structures meant to last millennia. Today, engineers are looking back at these methods not out of nostalgia, but for practical wisdom. The interlocking jigsaw puzzle masonry of the Inca, for instance, offers a masterclass in seismic resilience. Their walls dance during earthquakes, then settle back into place, a principle now studied for designing modern buildings in fault zones. This ancient insight into dissipating energy through flexible joints is a powerful alternative to our rigid, brittle materials. The precision achieved by these early craftspeople is another point of deep respect. Using nothing but stone hammers and patient abrasion, they achieved fits so perfect that the seams between blocks are virtually invisible. In some cases, this handmade precision rivals what we can accomplish today with computer-controlled lasers, a testament to a level of skill and patience that modern industry has all but forgotten. Of course, our world prioritizes safety and speed in ways the ancient world could not. The monumental projects of the past were fraught with danger, demanding a staggering investment of time and human endurance. Modern machinery shields workers from these immense risks and compresses project timelines from generations into years. This is undeniable progress, yet the core lesson remains. Ancient builders were masters of optimization, squeezing every ounce of potential from their limited toolkit. They understood how to leverage mass, manipulate friction, and turn simple machines into world-changing tools. This philosophy of doing more with less is incredibly relevant today as we face our own challenges with resource constraints and environmental sustainability. Their legacy is not just in the stones they left behind, but in a blueprint for efficient, resilient design. The silent testimony of these monuments continues to spark new questions, driving a cycle of research that constantly refines our understanding of the past. Beneath the dense jungle canopy, new eyes are searching. Light detection and ranging, or LiDAR, technology is piercing the veil of vegetation, revealing entire landscapes of hidden megalithic structures. These aerial laser surveys have uncovered vast, interconnected networks of temples and plazas in places like Cambodia and Central America, proving these sites were far more extensive than we ever dreamed. Each new digital map redraws the boundaries of ancient civilizations, showing us that the megalithic world was a sprawling, complex web of human achievement. Meanwhile, back in the laboratory, material scientists are examining the stones with microscopic precision. They analyze the unique wear patterns left by stone and copper tools, creating a fingerprint database of ancient techniques. The subtle differences between a pecking mark from a stone hammer and a grinding groove from a sandstone slab can tell us exactly how a surface was finished, and even in which order the work was done. This turns a blank stone wall into a detailed instruction manual written in the language of microscopic abrasion. We are even learning about the builders themselves through their bones. Genetic analysis of skeletal remains found near construction sites reveals a stunning picture of the workforce. In some cases, the labor was drawn from local, closely related communities. In others, the DNA tells a story of far-flung origins, suggesting that building these monuments was a pilgrimage that attracted people from across a wide region. Studies of their bones show the physical cost of this work, with skeletons bearing the marks of immense repetitive strain, but also signs of healed injuries that point to a community that cared for its workers. The theories of how they moved these stones are also being tested in virtual environments. Engineers are now using computational fluid dynamics, the same software used to design modern ships, to model how ancient rafts would have behaved in river currents and ocean waves. They can simulate how a 100-ton block lashed to a reed boat would handle a specific stretch of river, testing the limits of these ancient maritime technologies with digital precision. This constant flow of new data ensures that the story of the megaliths is never finished. A single LiDAR scan can overturn decades of accepted theory, while a new genetic finding can completely reshape our understanding of who these people were. This dynamic, evolving field underscores a pressing responsibility. Every time a site is looted or a stone is carelessly developed over, we are not just losing a relic, we are burning a page from humanity's collective engineering manual. The preservation of these places is no longer just about protecting the past, but about safeguarding the raw materials for future discovery. These silent stone libraries face a relentless modern enemy, the slow decay brought by time and our own footsteps. Organizations like UNESCO have stepped in, designating many of these sites as World Heritage locations to marshal global resources for their defense. This status is more than a plaque, it is a commitment to active protection. Teams implement measures to combat erosion, carefully redirecting water runoff that can undermine ancient foundations. They install discrete barriers and viewing platforms to protect against the cumulative damage of millions of tourist footsteps and the heartbreaking scars of vandalism. The goal is not to lock these places away, but to manage access sustainably, ensuring they can be experienced without being loved to death. This global effort finds its most powerful allies in the local communities who have lived alongside these monuments for generations. Their role is irreplaceable, merging traditional knowledge with modern science. They understand the local climate, the way water moves across the land, and the seasonal shifts that affect the stones. This deep, place-based wisdom guides conservation, ensuring that repairs are made with appropriate materials and that the spirit of the site is never lost to sterile restoration. Alongside these physical efforts, a digital revolution is ensuring immortality. Through high-resolution 3D scanning and virtual reality, we can now create perfect digital twins of these monuments. Anyone, anywhere in the world can put on a headset and walk through the stone corridors of Newgrange or stand beneath the towering Moe, experiencing their grandeur without causing a single grain of stone to wear away. This technology is not a replacement for the real thing, but a vital tool for global education and preservation, a backup copy of our collective memory. Yet a new and accelerating threat looms, one that ancient builders never could have anticipated. Climate change, with its rising sea levels and intensifying storms, now directly endangers coastal megaliths. Sites that have stood for thousands of years are being battered by increasingly powerful waves, while saltwater intrusion eats away at their foundations from below. This has prompted urgent, innovative protective actions, from building new seawalls to, in some desperate cases, planning the relocation of entire monuments further inland. The race is on to save them from a world they helped to create. Why does this matter so deeply? Preserving these stones is not merely an act of nostalgia. It is a promise to future generations that they, too, will have the chance to stand in the shadow of these marvels, to feel that direct connection to human ingenuity, and to continue the work of unraveling their mysteries. Our responsibility to safeguard this heritage is a direct line connecting our present to their past. This urgent work to protect what remains inevitably leads us to a final, personal reflection. What do these enduring stones and our fight to save them ultimately tell us about ourselves? The silent endurance of these stones speaks to something deep within us, a fundamental truth about human potential. These monuments are not relics of a lost super race, but proof of what ordinary people can achieve through shared purpose and relentless persistence. They remind us that our own modern challenges, however complex, are not insurmountable. The builders did not possess magic, they possessed ingenuity. They looked at a 100-ton block and saw not an impossibility, but a series of small, manageable problems to be solved with levers, ramps, and coordinated effort. This mindset is their greatest legacy, a timeless lesson in breaking down colossal tasks into achievable steps. Their work also reveals the profound power of integrating different ways of knowing. The construction of a stone circle required not just the technical skill of a mason, but the celestial knowledge of an astronomer and the spiritual vision of a priest. It was a holistic endeavor where the practical and the sacred were woven together, each making the other stronger. This fusion of hand and mind, of calculation and belief, created something far greater than the sum of its parts. It challenges our modern tendency to compartmentalize knowledge, suggesting that our most enduring solutions may come from blending disciplines we often keep separate. Studying these mysteries also teaches us a necessary humility. For generations, we underestimated the capabilities of these ancient cultures, dismissing their feats as impossible without external help. We are now learning through patient archaeology and experimentation just how much we still have to learn from them. Their understanding of materials, their mastery of logistics, and their long-term vision for projects that would outlive them by millennia all demand our respect. This recognition connects us across the vast expanse of time. When you stand before a megalith, you are not just looking at a cold stone, you are feeling the presence of that collective human spirit, the same drive for creation and meaning that exists within us today. The true lesson of the megaliths is not locked in the past, but lives on in our capacity to innovate and collaborate. Their story invites us to consider the monuments we are building for the future, both literal and metaphorical. What will our own society leave behind that will inspire wonder thousands of years from now? The journey of discovery does not have to end here. You can become part of this ongoing exploration by visiting these sites with a renewed perspective, supporting the organizations that protect them, or simply by delving into the fascinating research that continues to rewrite our history. The mystery is still alive, waiting for the next curious mind to contribute a piece to the puzzle. These ancient stones are not locked away in museums, they are waiting for you to visit. Many of the world's most famous megalithic sites, from the stone circles of Stonehenge to the sprawling alignments of Karnak in France, welcome the public with guided tours that bring the theories to life. Standing in the shadow of a monolith you have only seen in pictures is a transformative experience, a direct connection to the past that no documentary can fully replicate. The visitor centers at these locations are treasure troves of information, often showcasing replica tools and offering detailed explanations of the latest archaeological thinking. If you cannot make the journey in person, technology offers a remarkable alternative. Virtual museums and online databases, like those hosted by UNESCO or major universities, provide high-resolution 3D models of these monuments. You can rotate a digital Stonehenge on your screen, explore the chambers of a tomb from every angle, and zoom in on carvings that would be difficult to see even if you were there. These digital archives preserve every detail, allowing for a kind of intimate exploration that is sometimes impossible on a crowded tour. For those who feel a deeper pull, the adventure does not have to end with observation. Many archaeological projects rely on volunteers for their field seasons. Joining a local archaeological society or signing up for a citizen science program can give you the chance to sift through history with your own hands, participating in an active excavation or helping to catalog finds. This hands-on work transforms you from a spectator into a contributor, directly aiding the research that unravels these ancient puzzles. To build your knowledge from home, a wealth of books and documentaries stand ready. Authors like Brian Fagan provide rigorously researched accounts grounded in mainstream archaeology, while figures like Graham Hancock present more speculative interpretations that challenge conventional timelines. Engaging with a range of these perspectives allows you to understand the full spectrum of debate and form your own conclusions about the megalithic mystery. This active pursuit, whether through travel, virtual exploration, or hands-on digging, makes the story of these stones your own. Your curiosity is not a passive thing, it is the very engine of discovery. The next great revelation about these ancient wonders could begin with a question you ask while standing before them. As we near the end of our journey, let us address some of the most common questions that arise when we ponder these colossal achievements. How long did it take to raise a monument like Stonehenge from the earth? The answer is not measured in years, but in generations. Current archaeological estimates suggest the entire complex evolved over a period of more than 1,000 years, with its main stone circle taking several centuries to complete. This was not a single project with a fixed deadline, but an ongoing, evolving sacred landscape. Work was likely seasonal, organized around the farming calendar, with communities gathering during quieter periods to contribute their labor. This long-term vision fundamentally reshapes our understanding of time, revealing a culture that invested in a legacy their own great-grandchildren would witness completed. Another deeply human question often arises from the shadow of these stones. Were they built by slaves? While the brutal imagery of forced labor is tied to certain ancient empires, evidence from many megalithic sites points in a different direction. At places like Stonehenge, analysis of animal bones from worker feasts and the presence of healed injuries in nearby burials suggest a workforce that was well cared for. This points to a communal effort, perhaps a form of religious pilgrimage or a social duty that bonded people together. In other cultures, like that of the Inca, a system of labor tax called mitre required citizens to contribute work to state projects, which was a mandatory duty but not the same as chattel slavery. The reality is nuanced, likely a mix of voluntary communal work, skilled artisan guilds, and in some times and places, coerced labor, proving there was no single model for the human engine behind these wonders. So what was the absolute upper limit of their ambition? The title for the largest moved stone likely belongs to the Trilithon at Baalbek in Lebanon. Here, 3 limestone blocks each weigh an estimated 800 tons, but an even more colossal stone, still partially attached to the quarry a mile away, tips the scales at a staggering 1,600 tons. That is heavier than a fully loaded space shuttle. The mere existence of this abandoned giant demonstrates that ancient engineers were testing the very boundaries of the possible. Your questions are not just footnotes, they are the keys that unlock a more truthful and human picture of the past. They challenge simplistic narratives and push researchers to look closer, ensuring the story of these ancient builders continues to evolve. This ongoing dialogue between our curiosity and their legacy is what keeps the stones from falling silent. The journey through the megalithic world reveals a profound truth that the impossible was never magic, but a matter of method. We have traced the path from quarry to sky, witnessing how simple tools, levers, and ramps became extensions of human will. We have seen how a deep partnership with nature, using water as a road and ice as a slide, turned the environment into an ally. Most importantly, we have uncovered the true engine of these wonders, the power of human collaboration, where synchronized effort transformed individual strength into a collective force capable of moving mountains. Each step in this ancient process, from splitting bedrock with swelling wood to walking a statue upright, reflects a sophisticated understanding of physics and a resilient adaptation to the local landscape. These are not the crude attempts of a primitive people, but the masterworks of ingenious engineers. Their legacy challenges us to look beyond simple explanations and appreciate the stunning complexity woven into our shared history. The real mystery is not how they moved 100-ton stones, but how we ever underestimated the creative power of the human spirit. Let these enduring monuments stand as a permanent reminder that our greatest challenges today can be met with the same timeless ingredients: perseverance, ingenuity, and a shared sense of purpose. Thank you for exploring this ancient puzzle with me. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history's enigmas, subscribe for more journeys into the past, and I would love to hear which megalithic site fascinates you most in the comments.